Hello there and welcome to PS4 Fun, and this is my top 5 ranked photo modes. With the launch of the PlayStation 4 we found out that in this shareable world photo images from computer games were brilliant. Now the share button on the PlayStation 4 controller allowed us to share gameplay moments and photographs at the click of a button. But what we had in March 2014 with the release of infamous Second Son was the first of the photo modes, a mode that allowed us to pause gameplay, take control of the camera and actually choose some incredible angles and shots. And as time has passed, this photo mode has become better and better. So what I want to do with this particular video is to have a look at the top 5 photo modes that I have used and why I think they are or they deserve a place in the top 5. Number 5 is the granddaddy of them all, the one that started the trend for photo modes, and that is infamous Second Son. A glorious looking game, and it allowed you for the first time to freeze the camera and spin it Matrix style around Delsin as he charged across a beautifully rendered Seattle in neon powers and TV powers and smoke powers. In what was a fabulous technical showcase for the graphical potential of the PlayStation 4. Not the best entry in the Infamous canon. I must say that Infamous 2 is by far my favourite and is actually one of my all-time favourite games. Please, Sucker Punch, let's have a remaster of that little baby. But we had the opportunity to start changing the way the camera moved. We could change focus distance, so we could blur out bits of the background, focus on bits of the foreground, which allowed us to kind of really create photographs and images that were stunning. And then share button, Facebook, Twitter, straight away, no trouble there at all. We were able to show just how beautiful these games were. You can see I've now faded out that foreground. It also had the ability to change filters, which was one of the weaknesses I thought of the infamous Second Son compared to where we are now. Brilliant to begin with, but you couldn't change the level of that filter. It was at 100% or nothing, whereas others allowed you to fade in and out. One of the other things that inhibited infamous Second Son from being further up this list was the camera controls. The camera was fiddly. It was very difficult. It got snagged on scenery quite a bit. To get really, really good quality pictures was difficult. So then you could hide the UI down there, hit the share button, and suddenly you had some stunning images that you could splash all over social networks to prove to people just how phenomenal and fabulous the PlayStation 4 looked. This gets 5 on the list because it's a blooming good photo mode, but without infamous Second Son we probably wouldn't have photo modes at all. Number 4 on the list is my all-time favourite game, that is Naughty Dog's genius, The Last of Us. This was a game that was originally launched on the PlayStation 3 and was remastered for PS4 to include a photo mode. And it allowed us again to pause that wonderful action and just steep ourselves in the glory that was Last of Us. I mean, even in 2017, it stands up graphically to an awful lot of games that are released right now. Not at the top end, but certainly the remaster was fantastic. It allowed us to do depth of field, it allowed us to control the cameras. But there are a couple of things that made it a little bit different and a little bit better than infamous Second Son's photo mode. First and foremost was with the colour filters. As you can see now, the intensity is at 100%, and now we're adjusting the intensity so we could change colour filters but then fade them in and out to give us more options in terms of the atmosphere and the colorization of the photographs that we were trying to take. And there was a nice range of different ones to be able to do. We could add frames this time as well. I never used these, but you could go through and add different frames all the way through to a slightly weird one with hearts and stuff. There you go, share snap. I wasn't quite sure that was about when we were talking about the zombie apocalypse, but hey, we also had the addition of vignettes, so we could add these kind of dark outlines to the photographs and fade them in and out, which kind of focused on what was in the centre of the photograph, kind of bringing the intensity of that out, something I used a lot. And you can go onto the website and see a slideshow of all of my Last of Us shots. Film grain, in addition to kind of add a slightly washed out old feel to it. Brightness we could adjust this time as well, which means if we're in a darker area we could pitch that brightness up to pick out some bits. But the addition that was really interesting was the ability to hide characters. So if you just wanted to take a landscape photograph, you could do. You could hide just the main characters, you could hide their friends like Ellie, you could hide just the monsters, or you could hide everything so you could just glory at the gorgeous landscapes that Naughty Dog had created. And again, a fantastic way to demonstrate just how phenomenally looking these games are. But some real works of art and some great photo mode movies came out of this as well, which inspired me to do the photo mode movie for the number 2 on this list. But more of that one later. We're back to Naughty Dog for number 3 on the list, and that is Uncharted for A Thief's End, which is arguably one of the most glorious looking games ever. Number 1 on the list maybe nudged it out, but we'll get into that one later as well. But it was a beautiful game which actually rounded off Nathan Drake's story really nicely. We had a very flexible camera which allowed it to zoom quite a long way out but centered on the character, and so far all 3 of the photo modes I've mentioned do have the camera fixed around the character, so there is some restrictions on where you can go and what you can do. But we fixed around the character, had all of the things where we could rotate, we could fade in and out, got field of view which pulled the camera away to give you more scope, zoom it in to get really close. As you can see now, I want to get the guys all clambering over there. I used to use it to spy as well. Excellent way of looking around, scoping out what's going on. Depth of field again, bringing you in and out. It was really nice because, let's face it, you want to take photos in Uncharted's photo mode. I mean, even on the original remasters that we got, the photo mode there allowed us to take these fabulous photos from this consistently glorious looking games. We also had the frames, so we're back to the frames. Again, I never really bothered with these, but they had some interesting ones if you wanted to add some additional interest to the photos that you were taking. So never really bothered with frames. They didn't add anything as far as I was concerned, but again, option if you wanted them. Vignettes, just like with The Last of Us, the ability to zoom in and out and change all of the vignettes intensities, make them smaller, make them bigger. I liked that. Like I said, I used it a lot just to bring out the center of a photograph if you want to particularly focus on there, and gave lots of options. Brightness is in there again, massively bright if you wanted to, but if you're in a darker area, it allowed you to pick out some of those elements as well. And sharpness to really bring out the lovely textures. Chromatic aberration was a bit weird. I didn't get it, not sure why you'd want it, but it kind of blurred out and made everything a bit weird. And then hide characters, just like the Last of Us, you could take the characters in and out of the action. But one of the things in particular that I thought added a level of interest to this photo mode wasn't actually in the photo mode itself, but that was in the options. Once you'd finished the game, you got points depending on how many treasures you got and how many of the kind of internal options, that like number of headshots that you got. And you could buy render modes. So you could play the game in cel shaded. You could play the game in, next one, let's have a look. Thief Vision Afterlife made everyone look kind of like they're zombies, you know, kind of a Last of Us feel, though they're not zombies, obviously. And some really interesting weird ones that you simply could not play the game at, but ones that made it fun. I think the next one I look at here is the 8-bit, which is, you know, it's like the old games, or the ASCII ones. I mean, there were so many options which you could then choose that would alter the way the photographs were taken, so you could make them more interesting, make them more vibrant, make them more weird, to be honest. I mean, this last one, the ASCII mode here, how on earth are you going to play a game in that mode? I mean, you can hardly see what's going on. But again, click that into the photo mode and you've got some interesting options in terms of the photographs you're taking to present them in a very, very different way. Okay, so number 2 might be a bit contentious as a game, and that's The Order 1886. I played The Order 1886. There's in fact a full playthrough of The Order 1886 on my channel. And although the game itself didn't quite live up to expectations, and I have a review as well, the photo mode was exceptional. And until recently, until about 3 weeks ago, this would have got number 1, and number 1 would have been number 2. and I'll explain why when we get to the #1 spot on this photo mode list. But it had all of the things that you come to expect from photo modes. You could reset the camera, you could adjust the depth of field to make things look really good. And it was a bloody lovely looking game anyway. I mean, regardless of what you might think about in terms of the game itself, you cannot deny that it looked incredible. I mean, seriously, the attention to detail, the character models, it was all very beautiful, although pretty much an on-rails shooter with crap werewolves. But it provided us with a few things that were slightly different. So we're going to go through the things that expect, but the two things that elevated this above most other photo modes for me, and say it's only barely second place, I'll talk about and discuss in just a second. Depth of field was a bit finicky. They didn't implement that quite as well as some of the other photo modes, but this was quite early in photo modes. We had some really good different color gradings, different filters to add, which again, the intensity could be changed, which again gave different elements to those photographs. And I say I've got a ton of photos on this particular one. Lens flare and brightness were included in here as well, which is absolutely brilliant. We got some stunning effects from that. Vignettes, we know I love vignettes. That one's gone a bit wobbly. There you go, but gave that kind of intensity in the center, that focus on the center. Film grain put in there again. We could make it bigger, we could make it smaller, we could add it to kind of add a kind of an old style film. Even motion blur if you wanted to switch it on or off if you're in an action scene. Hiding the players, hiding friendlies, enemies, pretty standard so far. But the thing that made this different for me is that the other ones we've spoken about so far, and the one that gets #1, locked the camera around the character. As you can see now, no such thing with the Order 1886. The camera is free to move around the entirety of the level, and this, in some of the things that I've kind of used in the Order 86, is a smaller one. I mean, there's one where you're chasing down a half-breed, a werewolf, through London, and it's a huge amount of scope you can do. You can go from outside into buildings. If in that level your character can get to it, your camera can. So it did allow us to get some absolutely incredibly different views. And I do have photo mode the movie, which I did with Order 1886, where I used the photo mode to create 8 minutes of the story of the Order. I'll put a link to it in the description of this video. Please check it out. I'm very proud of it. But it's this freedom of camera which was great. But the last thing is the lock grading. Because if we put lock grading on and go back into the game, whatever filters we'd added, whatever grain, whatever lens flare remained in the game, and we could play it in the way that we'd set it up, which is, you know, not useful, but it's bloody cool, to be honest. So here I am, I set all of those different settings on the photo mode, and suddenly I can wander around Victorian London looking like this, which is amazing. Before we get to #1, here are some honourable mentions. And finally, #1 on this list, released on the 1st of March 2017, Guerrilla Games, awesome. Horizon Zero Dawn, which does challenge Uncharted 4 for the most gorgeous game probably ever, most remarkably because this level of amazing was managed within an open world, and an open world that was interesting and fun. If you haven't played Horizon Zero Dawn, bloomin' well play it, because it is awesome. Absolutely awesome. It's got all the things you come to expect. It's got control of the character. It's got the ability to hide the character, depth of field, focus. But just go onto Instagram or go onto Guerrilla Games' Twitter account and just have a look at some of the incredible things that people have created in the photo mode for Horizon Zero Dawn. They are works of art. And Guerrilla Games have a little competition where they will print these works of art out and send them to people. I mean, it's phenomenal. I like to think I've done some good ones, but nothing compared to some of the stuff I've seen. And again, we've got all the tropes: brightness, overexposure to gain intensity for colours. You've got different filters, you've got intensity filters, but this is amazing. You can change the time of day. This is a persistent world with a day-night cycle. If you don't want to take your photograph at night, but the game has put you into night, you don't have to. You can add the lovely borders that we know that I really don't care about. You can add logos as well if you want to credit Horizon. Add greetings. Greetings from Horizon Zero Dawn at night. Okay, so if we then get the time of day, it changes the greetings from sunny Horizon Zero Dawn, which I think is quite nice. I haven't used the greetings and I don't know necessarily what they're there for. It's only got those two, greetings from Horizon Zero Dawn. If it's raining, I wonder if it gets rainy. I'll have to go to a place where it's rainy and see whether the greeting changes. Vignettes. We know Michael likes vignettes. But there are a couple of things they added in the last 3 or 4 weeks which give me, or gave this, the edge over the Order 1886. Order 1886 was going to win. But this is what they added in an update. They added a grid. Now, those of you who do photography, there is a name for this grid. It escapes me at the moment, but it helps you position things within the frame so they look good. We've also got body pose. So we can actually change the pose that Aloy has. And we've got quite a lot of different options. We can have a balancing on one leg, boundless. I don't know. I'm just going to switch off the greetings so we can see it better. There we go. Naive. I mean, there's just loads of them. So, again, people have used this. That love one, there's a love one in a minute, which was the little heart. There you go, love. People have done those so that love symbol is actually framing the sun or a storm bird or something like that. And it's just created this raft of superb, I mean, lying down, having a relax, dreamer, reflection, she's thinking about stuff. She's lying around having a stargaze. I mean, it's incredible. We can do all of this stuff, change the way Aloy looks and stands to suit the photograph that we want to capture, rather than being stuck with a slightly surprised looking Aloy that we can't change, or one that's getting blown up. Absolutely brilliant. There is also the ability, when I kind of zoom in a little bit further, to change facial expressions as well. I was clicking the wrong button. But first of all, look, we can press L3 and Aloy will then look at the camera. It's slightly freaky, but it means that we can always have Aloy looking at the camera. She will track, bit of a glitch. She'll track round and follow where we're going, which means we can always have her looking, regardless of how we set up. Our angle means that if we want her looking directly into the camera, we can do. It's really clever. There you go. She's staring at us now, following us round. It's slightly freaky because I must say it's an incredibly realistic looking game. I find it slightly unnerving, to be honest with you. But again, options, options, options. We want good options. We want to be able to do these things. That is the critical part of any photo mode. Give us things we can do with it. Infamous Second Son was basic. It was very basic. But it started the trend for these photo modes. And the good ones that are on this list have added elements. And Horizon Zero Dawn has added the most elements of all. I think I'm going to zoom in now so we can have a look at the facial animations that we can change. So again, my problem is, I know she's a very serious person, but they didn't add smile. I'd like to have had smile. It's sharp, it's rough, uneven, but you can actually just, I would like to smile. Don't you think that would have been nice? I mean, she doesn't smile much in the game. She does smile a little bit, but smile would have been fun. But options in terms of what we can do. And this is such a superb looking game that it has, I say, got huge numbers of people very excited and coming up with some really exquisite photographs. Again, I've got a slideshow of mine that I took before this photo mode update happened. So, Horizon Zero Dawn is at the top of the list because of options, and just look at it, it's glorious. But photo mode is something I think every third-person action game should have because it gives us new ways to interact with the content that we've grown to love. These are my top 5. Please check out my website and the YouTube channel, because I've got some galleries of the stuff that I've taken over the years. But if you have a different idea of a photo mode, perhaps you've tried one that isn't on this list that I haven't come across, please comment. Please let me know what it is, because I'd love to check it out and know what your thoughts are. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. As always, have a fabulous gaming week, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye for now.